what prosecutors unearthed about the man behind the dating app shattered every expectation. In February 2025, 16-year-old Miranda Corsette vanished. A troubled teenager, she lived with her grandmother in Gulfport, Florida. Her parents gone, her life a painful swirl of instability. But no one could have predicted how that instability would collide with a darkness more profound than anyone imagined. On February 14, Miranda met Steven Gress, 35, for the first time. They connected on the dating app Grindr, a detail that would soon loom larger than anyone expected. He invited her to his duplex in St. Petersburg. She went home that night, and in a twist that cut to the heart of tragedy, she returned the very next day. There, at that address, lived not just Gress, but his partner, Michelle Brandis, age 37. Over the next week, according to court documents, everything twisted. On February 20th, a dispute erupted over a missing ring. Gress believed Miranda had taken it. That same day, the nightmare began. What investigators later described as extreme, torturous abuse unfolded within those walls. For days, from the 20th through the 24th, Miranda was beaten, held captive. Her alleged torment was not whispered, it was documented. According to a search warrant, Gress later confessed that he and Brandis suspected her of stealing his ring. Then, something unthinkable happened. Brandis, prosecutors say, suffocated Miranda. She shoved a pool ball wrapped in a sock into her mouth, then wrapped her head tightly in plastic. Gress tried to intervene, telling Brandis not to cover her nose, but she did anyway. When life left her, her body was not treated with mercy. According to investigators, after her death, Gress transported her corpse to a home in Largo, the home of Brandis's mother. There, they allegedly dismembered her with a chainsaw. The remains were stuffed into trash bags, loaded into a vehicle, and carried through the Tampa Bay area. In a chilling twist, Gress and Brandis weren't driving in hiding. Surveillance later revealed that they stopped to eat at Popeyes, to play mini-golf at Congo River. Meanwhile, Miranda's remains sat in their trunk. On February 24th, her grandmother reported her missing. Only March 5th, a witness came forward, telling police what they'd seen, what they suspected. Detectives later traced the trail. Gress and Brandis's movements, the dumpster on 14th Avenue Southeast in Ruskin, Hillsborough County, where her remains were finally discarded. The horror unleashed gave way to charges, first-degree murder and kidnapping for both Gress and Brandis. State prosecutors announced they intend to seek the death penalty. In the legal aftermath, another war began, this one in courtrooms. The estate of Miranda Corsette filed a civil suit against Grindr, accusing the app of reckless negligence. According to their lawyers, the platform failed to implement age verification safeguards, making it possible for a minor like Miranda to meet an adult predator. A federal judge later ruled in favor of Grindr, siding with the company that Miranda had agreed to arbitration when she signed up. The images from her final days, bruised, swollen, desperate, were allegedly shared by Gress with his mother and others. These weren't hidden behind closed doors. They were broadcast in plain sight, and yet no one intervened. Now, as the legal fight intensifies, the world watches. Two people stand accused of unimaginable cruelty, a teenage girl's story turned into a courtroom battleground, and a dating app's liability hanging in the balance. Every filing, every revelation, every tear, laying bare how fragile trust can be and how dangerous the promise of connection sometimes becomes. As the courtroom clock ticks forward into April 2025, the tension around Steven Gress and Michelle Brandis tightens, and pieces long kept in shadow begin to surface with a rawness that makes the public recoil. There is mounting evidence that multiple people saw signs of Miranda Corsette's torment, that even as she suffered in Gress's home, others might have known. Court records reveal that several individuals had suspicions or first-hand glimpses of her being held captive, yet they remained silent. In one chilling admission, Gress told detectives that Brandis struck Miranda so violently that her injuries worsened day by day, yet at times he would run errands. He claimed to go to a CVS, ostensibly to help her. Through interrogation, Gress said that Brandis took a ball from a pool table,
put it in a sock, shoved it down Miranda's throat, then tightly wrapped her head in plastic, suffocating her. Gress told detectives he tried to talk her out of covering Miranda's nose, but she proceeded anyway. The method of killing, investigators say, was deliberate. Another even more harrowing detail: Gress allegedly sent graphic photographs of Miranda's beaten, swollen, and degrading condition, not just to a few acquaintances, but to his own mother, Jacqueline Christich. In every frame, the bruising deepened. In every message, something like desperation flickered, or at least what looked like it. Still, no one who received them called the police. As the legal battle unfolds, prosecutors filed a formal notice of intent to seek the death penalty against both Gress and Brandis. The state's attorney's office has framed the case as one of the most heinous in recent memory, citing especially cruel, atrocious, and depraved conduct. Meanwhile, a civil front opened. Miranda's estate pursued a wrongful death lawsuit against Grindr, arguing that the app's failure to safeguard users under the age of 18 helped make this horror possible. But in a courtroom ruling that shocked many, U.S. District Judge Tom Barber sided with Grindr. He reasoned that by creating her account, Miranda had agreed to its terms, including arbitration, even though she was a minor. The judge noted she had opened at least 3 Grindr accounts, each time assenting to the same arbitration clause. As these legal scars deepen, the story's human toll becomes clearer. Miranda was more than a missing person report. She was a 16-year-old mother, living with her grandmother, quietly navigating a fragile life. Her vulnerability, her age, became part of what many now call a calculated crime. Yet even in this darkest moment, a more uncomfortable question lingers in court documents and press coverage. How many knew, or at least suspected, and did nothing? What could have been done and failed to protect her long before that February meeting on Grindr? As pre-trial hearings loom, with a death penalty case brewing, civil suits wrapping around the edges, and public outrage swelling, the very mechanics of connection are under scrutiny. The app, the abusers, and a girl with so much life ahead of her, all caught in a brutal collision. Justice, many argue, has no choice but to answer.
And the silence around her disappeared. New court records reveal that at least 6 people, neighbors, roommates, acquaintances, had witnessed or suspected that Miranda Corsette, the 16-year-old, was being held against her will in the St. Petersburg duplex she'd entered on February 14th, yet no one called 911. Among them was a former resident of the duplex. She told detectives that she once shared the home with Steven Gress, who then was romantically involved with Michelle Brandis. She described a home steeped in imbalance. Gress apparently sought disadvantaged women and girls who were either homeless or addicted to drugs, she told officers, and she blamed Brandis's jealousy for escalating tensions. Over days, she recounted she watched as the abuse unfolded. On February 23rd, for example, Brandis wrapped plastic tightly around Miranda's head. According to her account, Gress warned Brandis not to cover her nose, yet later admitted she had also covered her mouth. In interviews, Gress claimed that during those same days, he would leave the house under the guise of helping Miranda recover. He said he visited a CVS to get her medication, but his actions painted a darker picture. He admitted to detectives that Brandis took a billiard ball, wrapped it in a sock, shoved it into Miranda's throat, and then secured plastic around her face so tightly that she could not breathe. According to him, he protested covering her nose, but Brandis disregarded him. After her death, investigators say her body was transported to a home in Largo, where Gress allegedly used a chainsaw to dismember her. When the remains were finally dumped, it was in a Ruskin dumpster. As this evidence mounted, a troubling question grew louder. How could so many people have seen the abuse, or at least suspected it, and stayed silent? Court documents suggest that Gress was not a reclusive figure. Witnesses say he openly boasted about hurting others. Meanwhile, the legal battle outside the couple's cell continued. In a major ruling, U.S. District Judge Tom Barber sided with Grindr, deciding that the civil case brought by Miranda's estate must go to arbitration. Judge Barber pointed out that Miranda had created at least 3 Grindr accounts, each time agreeing to its arbitration clause. The people who saw her suffering are now part of the public record. 6 silent voices layered over the horror of what happened behind closed doors. Their inaction, prosecutors argue, is not just neglect. It is part of a broader failure, a collapse of protection that allowed a 16-year-old girl to be broken, silenced, and lost. The courtroom now leans into that void, demanding accountability, not just from Gress and Brandis, but from those who turned away. As the investigation deepened, the public learned that witnesses weren't merely passive bystanders. Some may have seen more than they dared to admit. Court-filed records revealed that at least 6 people, including neighbors and former tenants of Gress's St. Petersburg duplex, suspected that Miranda Corsette was being held against her will. One former roommate described a home riddled with tension. She told detectives that Gress had a history of seeking out disadvantaged women and girls, and that Brandis, driven by jealousy, escalated violence when she feared losing his attention. According to that same witness, on the night of February 23rd, Brandis wrapped plastic tightly around Miranda's face. Gress reportedly pleaded with her not to cover her nose. She did anyway. Meanwhile, Gress claimed he made routine trips to a CVS under the pretense of caring for Miranda. But investigators say those runs concealed something far more sinister. Prosecutors have underscored the deliberate cruelty. In his statements to police, Gress said that Brandis struck Miranda over the missing ring, then used a billiard ball wrapped in a sock to force into her mouth before encasing her head in plastic wrap in a way that blocked her airway. After her death, Gress admitted they transported her body to a home in Largo, where evidence indicates she was dismembered. On March 7th, St. Petersburg police formally charged Gress with first-degree murder and confirmed that Brandis surrendered shortly after, both now held in custody. The same news release stated that the couple transported the body on Mallory Drive in Largo, then allegedly dumped the remains in a dumpster in Ruskin, Hillsborough County. As the criminal case progressed, a civil one followed. In a lawsuit filed by Miranda's estate, her family alleges that Grindr's lax policies helped enable the tragedy. The suit claims the app failed to provide meaningful age verification or limit access to minors, even though Gress allegedly misrepresented her age until it was too late. In court, U.S. District Judge Tom Barber sided with Grindr, ruling that Miranda had agreed to arbitration, not a courtroom trial, each time she created her account, despite being only 16. The ruling drew sharp criticism from her family, who argue that a minor should never have been funneled into such a binding agreement. Meanwhile, prosecutors filed a notice of intent to seek the death penalty against both Gress and Brandis, calling their alleged actions especially cruel, atrocious, and depraved. In their view, the death of a vulnerable 16-year-old, a teenager who, according to investigators, lived in a world of loss and instability, alone but for her grandmother, demands the strongest possible accountability. In the courtroom, the questions swirl. How could so many have seen the abuse and done nothing? Why did the system meant to protect her fail? And if her voice couldn't be saved in life, will it at least carry enough power now, in death, to force change?
As the legal aftermath intensifies, a deeper reckoning unfolds, one that threatens not just the accused, but the very systems that failed Miranda Corsette. In filings tied to the civil suit, Miranda's estate accuses Grindr of negligence, arguing that the dating app's lack of effective age verification safeguards made her vulnerability a gateway for abuse. The lawsuit doesn't merely demand compensation, it names 9 separate causes of action: wrongful death, negligent infliction of emotional distress, and even participation in sex trafficking venues, alleging that the app's design actively enabled the circumstances that led to her torture and murder. While her family fights in civil court, the criminal case moves forward with even graver stakes. Prosecutors have officially filed their notice of intent to seek the death penalty against both Steven Gress and Michelle Brandis, citing the calculated and brutal nature of what they describe as especially cruel, atrocious, and depraved conduct. The decision underscores just how serious the state views the allegations, that Miranda's death was not a moment of rage, but a prolonged, intentional horror. In parallel, more distressing details have surfaced around who knew and when. According to court records, the former resident of Gress's St. Petersburg duplex shared a harrowing portrait. She told investigators that Gress had shown her a disturbing pattern of predatory behavior, seeking disadvantaged women and girls in fragile circumstances. She revealed that days before Miranda's death, Brandis wrapped plastic around her face on at least one occasion, despite Gress reportedly protesting that she cover the victim's nose. Perhaps most damning is what Gress allegedly admitted to during interrogation. He told detectives that in the wake of the girl's death, he and Brandis transported her remains to a house in Largo. There, according to him, he dismembered her body with a chainsaw before driving her remains to a dumpster in Ruskin, Hillsborough County. But beyond the crime itself, there's a portrait of chilling detachment. A search warrant describes how after the killing, the couple drove around the Tampa Bay area, stopping for Popeyes, playing mini-golf at Congo River, as though they were simply running errands, not disposing of a human life. Investigators believe the dumpster where her remains were later found may have been hauled to a landfill and incinerated, putting pieces of her to fiery rest and leaving prosecutors to build a case without a full body. Meanwhile, in the civil arena, Grindr continues to defend its liability by pointing to Miranda's repeated creation of accounts. Judge Tom Barber highlighted that she opened the app at least 3 times, accepting its arbitration clause each time. The ruling, made in November 2025, forces the estate into arbitration rather than a jury trial, a move that has sparked outrage among her family's legal team, who argue that a teenager should never have been bound so tightly by such terms. As the pretrial calendar fills, with death penalty motion hearings, civil arbitration looming, and media scrutiny growing, the world watches. The question now is not just whether Gress and Brandis will be held responsible, but whether a teenage girl's life was valued enough in her own lifetime to protect her.
As the weeks pass, the courtroom drama tightens like a vice, and the voices demanding justice for Miranda Corsette grow ever sharper. In recent filings, her estate's attorneys argue that Grindr's failure to vet its users was not a mere oversight. It was a breach so profound that it allowed a 16-year-old to walk into a nightmare. Their lawsuit, filed in the U.S. Middle District Court of Florida, names multiple counts, including negligent infliction of emotional distress, participation in a sex trafficking venue, and wrongful death. Meanwhile, in criminal court, prosecutors reaffirm their intention to seek the death penalty against Steven Gress and Michelle Brandis, underscoring the gravity of what they call a calculated, horrendous crime. Pretrial hearings are scheduled, and legal teams on both sides are now locked in a battle over how the facts will reach a jury, whether through sworn testimony, forensic reports, or the most chilling elements of the arrest affidavit. From the public side, there is growing outrage at the system that allowed this to happen. In a March press briefing, St. Petersburg Police Chief Anthony Holloway issued a stark warning. Please make sure you know what your kids are doing on social media. If someone is contacting you and they're not a family member, please let your parents know. That same release confirmed what investigators had long feared. After her disappearance on February 24th, her remains were found dismembered. Evidence points to a Largo home before her body was left in a dumpster in Ruskin. There are also deep, painful questions surfacing about who knew what and when. According to court documents, Gress sent photographs of Miranda's abused, bruised body to his mother, Jacqueline Christich, and others. Those graphic messages, which could have acted as warning signs, did not lead to a call to 911. Prosecutors point to that silence as part of a broader societal failure. Bystanders saw pieces of her suffering, but remained inert. As the legal machinery grinds forward, civil suit, death penalty notice, pretrial motion filings, the very legacy of Miranda Corsette, a vulnerable teenager who met a man on a dating app and paid with her life, becomes a symbol of danger, of neglect, and of the urgent need for reform. If you believe more people need to hear her story, if you want updates on this case and other true crime stories that demand justice, please subscribe to Crime Scene 24/7. Like, comment, and share this video to help spread awareness. Your voice matters.